Welcome to Lead Like a Girl, where we are empowering everyday women through our stories. I'm your host, Jessica Smith, and I began this journey by sharing my life story. Now, I've joined forces with my longtime friends, Jamie and Coralyn, to keep this party going. We met many years ago as young sales girls in our 20s, driven and quickly rising to the top of our industry. As the years went on, life happened, and we all found ourselves in new companies and completely different industries, still striving for success in it all. Career, family, faith, fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but we never stopped moving. Get ready for our real conversations, inspiring stories, and our big life lessons as we share it all. The good, the bad, and the funny. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl.
All right, welcome to another episode of Lead Like a Girl. This is Coralyn signing on as the hostess with the mostest. I just gave myself that title. It's not corny at all. I've got my two best friends, Jamie. We remember last time I wasn't supposed to give you that superlative.
Thank you for the title.
You're welcome. And we have another guest today. We have Julia Gustafson here. I'm going to give you the official introduction in a little bit, but Julia, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Apart from a little tornado watch that's going on around me. So if suddenly I blow away.
I feel like it's probably 1 out of 4 chance somebody's having some crazy weather. Our tornado drills went off today, and I thought, wow, this will be an interesting one. I haven't podcasted through a tornado, so I'm glad to see your house.
Jamie. Yeah. Or was it I don't know what it was, but there was something. Trees were falling down and we were recording, remember?
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, there's just really never a dull moment. So we're kicking off. We have got a fantastic show. Listeners, you're in for a treat. I don't want to spill too much because I want to give you the proper introduction, Julia. But Julia, you might not be familiar with this. We always like to start off our podcast with a little first minute fast, but I want to switch a little current events because there's been a significant amount of buzz over these 6 ladies flying into space. So for those of you that don't know and just sleeping on another planet, there were 6 women astronauts that took a trip from Blue Origin up to space. And there has been, I feel like, a very interesting dialogue, very polarizing, again, as with everything in our current events, about these ladies going up into space. And I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. But I was just wondering, what is your take on these ladies? I kind of just stand right in the middle, like, awesome. I'm so happy that you guys had this courage to go up and do this, because I feel like I would be completely terrified to do any kind of astronaut show that I've watched. I feel like your brain gets left 9 miles behind you and you're up in space. I feel like I'd probably throw up in myself about 19 times and then come back to Earth. So the fact that these guys even looked remotely together on their way back is just like high five to them. What do you guys think?
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing this to my attention, Cor, because I'm one of those people that live in the bubble and I had absolutely no clue what the hell you're talking about. So thank you very much. I might get my one current affairs from you weekly if you bring this back to us. So thank you. And I guess my first thought is, what's the big deal? And maybe you can kind of fill me in. And then, is it because it's women? Or would this be a thing if it was just like 4 random dudes? That's my first thought.
Yeah, I think some of the controversy was that they're going out. It's a little bit of a publicity stunt. There's a significant cost that's associated with it. It's not great for the environment. They're blasting a rocket ship up into space, so it has an environmental impact. So there's a little bit of gray area around those kind of things. Jamie, do you have a thought, or Julia, do you have a thought?
Can I comment a little bit on that? Yes. So I actually did follow this a bit. I'm not going to say I'm some sort of expert on this whole thing, but so it's one of those things where it's like you have the greatest of intentions, right? You want to bring awareness to, they're all females. They're doing this awesome thing. They're raising awareness for STEM. They want girls to get totally interested in science and being an astronaut and doing all these cool things. But then the backlash is like, oh, you poked a hole in the environment. It costs money to do this. And, oh, why are you up there? Why are you important? And things like that. So there's that's kind of the controversy with it. But at the end of the day, it was like and then also, oh, it's just a publicity stunt or whatever. But I think that the intentions behind it were, I looked at it as cool. A handful of women got to go up in space together. Women, all women. That's great.
Right?
Go girls.
I kind of had to laugh at it. I think Katy Perry going up for a little bit of weightlessness doesn't exactly do a whole lot for STEM. I think there's other ways that we could have spent that money and done it, and maybe they self-funded. I don't know that much. I think if that was their purpose, there's other ways that maybe it could have been achieved. I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't affect me at all. I love women doing things together. I just am not quite certain of the purpose.
I think it got lost a bit with
I think
the purpose got lost. I think there wasn't enough.
Was it really Katy Perry?
Yeah,
yes.
She was one of them.
Well,
so I think
the
purpose was
Katy
lost.
Perry, Gayle King, Oprah's bestie.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos's fiance or his wife or whoever she is. And then a couple other people who are actually that have aeronautic careers. I don't know if they're actual astronauts, but they are in a STEM related field. But I think that the whole thing was a little bit more of a publicity. And I don't know. I didn't really hear a lot leading up to it. It just kind of hit the news like, hey, this happened. So I feel like there could have been, like Julia, to your point, probably if this was really trying to put the best foot forward for women in science, technology, engineering, math, there probably could have been a little bit of a better play in that fashion. But I say at the end of the day, it's something.
Well,
it got Jessica worried about current events.
Jessica's involved.
With that group, they could have paid for it themselves. So
I think they did.
Okay, if they did, then that makes it a little more.
Well, considering that Jeff Bezos' wife is in there, they probably got a little bit of a good guy discount, I would say.
That was what. So,
Julia, you look like you got a comment.
How do you feel?
What do you think?
How do you feel about it?
Weren't they up there like 12 minutes? So it's not like they were doing
10 minutes.
Yeah,
experiments up there, and they weren't living on the space station.
They did do some experiments, I guess.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
That part I don't know. I think
Katy Perry made a music video. I don't know.
Jamie, we're not going here with you. Let's get back on topic.
Right.
She's going to take us down that rabbit
That's
hole.
our current event topic. I appreciate your input. Check out the information. Let us know what you think about that. But again, so this is Lead Like a Girl. We are here to just empower everyday women through our stories, all the good, the bad, and the funny. And I tell you what, our guest today, Julia, brings a little bit of all three. Julia, so she is known, get this, guys, as the Headstone Lady. She is the owner and artist behind Two Rivers Monuments. So she has been in a male-dominated industry for over 20 years, crafting custom headstones. So she literally etches headstones that you would see in a cemetery or different works of art too. Like they're not just in cemeteries, but think of like that type of thing that really tells people's stories in stone. And she's built this incredible business. And the other thing is she's not just a business owner. She's an artist. She's a mom to some very strong girls. We've already talked about this, and she has been rocking this mom life and really just has got some fantastic stories about how she's empowering other women just to live their truths every day. So I'm really excited for us to have Julia here. Julia, so welcome to Lead Like a Girl.
Thanks for inviting me. I was super excited. I mean, this is right up my alley and part of my whole existence and things that I focus on. So I appreciate it.
So I would can you just give us a little bit of a backstory? So we love it really talking about life-changing moments that change your history. So you shared in your bio that you fell in love with the monument business, which is a little bit different, I would say, than most females that I know. Tell me about how you got started in this business, what that looked like, how you kind of came to own the business that you are right now. Can you give us a little bit of that story?
Sure. I was actually a manager of a nationwide fabric and craft store for several years. And I was a single mom with two little girls, and I was working 65 hours a week. So these guys were basically falling asleep in the back of the store in the back room at night because I had to work. And I saw an ad in a newspaper that said, artist wanted, portraits of plus, supply at this P.O. box. And I was, at the time, I literally was sitting on my grandmother's grave in tears because she had raised me. She had always said, I wish you would do something with your art. But I thought, who's going to pay me to draw portraits, right? I mean, that's crazy. So I wrote a handwritten letter and I mailed it off to this P.O. box with some of my artwork. And 2 months later, I get a call and I was at work and the gentleman said, can you come for an interview today at 5? I'm like, yep, I'll be there. I walked in the door. He hired me. I had no clue what a monument business. I didn't know anything about it. It didn't matter. I was ready to get out of retail. And I put in my notice. I started 2 weeks later. And the first day I started, I was in love. I fell in love with the whole industry. And I look at still, that was 2 weeks before 2000, or in 2001, 2 weeks before 9/11. And I still love this industry. My feet didn't touch the ground, and I don't know that they still have. I mean, I get to tell stories in stone every single day, and I don't know how many people get to say that their artwork is around for hundreds of years. So I think it's amazing, and I get to meet incredible people and tell really great stories.
Yeah, I think that's so cool, especially, of course, we love stories. That's, what we love doing. And I never thought about telling a story that way. I'm not a funeral person. I'm not a gravesite person, but the thought of now, I mean, when I kind of did a little research in terms of, what you do and all this, and I'm looking at this stuff and it made me think like, if I got one of these, what would it be?
A lot of
I
people.
kind of think, Julia, what is the process of you working with a family and walking through this with them?
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm going to rewind just a second. So I started this office here in 2018 because I had left that monument shop that I was working at to go out on my own and do hand etching artwork for what ended up being 26 other monument companies in 11 different states. And so I was driving all over working for the companies. And finally I said, I just need a home. I need a place. So I had a vision of my own shop would incorporate opening the doors when I was etching on the stone for families to come in and work with me. And I'm the only shop in the States that does that. And I'm tooting my own horn, but I learned that it's part of people's healing. So what I do when a family comes in, we talk about what the regulations are for the cemetery that they're at, because every cemetery has their own rules and regulations. And we talk about that. We talk about budgets. And then I literally take a piece of paper and I sit down with them and I say, tell me about your dad. I don't care if it meant it's about he wore suspenders every day. I don't care if it's he carried 4 packs of Wrigley spearmint gum to church and handed them out behind his back so the parents wouldn't see that the kids got gum. I don't care if it's that he snores or tells dad jokes. I want to hear it all. And even though we're not going to put all of that on the stone, it's going to help me understand this personality. And if it's a couple, I want to know how they met. I want to know what their children's memories are when they were raising them. So we just start talking about their life. And that's what I say. If I could have a banner that ran across my whole entire building, it would say celebrate life, because that's what I want to do, right? They've already had the loss. I can't fix that. But what I can do is help write that story and celebrate that life for others to come, for future people to come back and see. So that's my whole guideline. I have catalogs, but most people's life wasn't cut out of a catalog, and so therefore I don't like to design that way.
I love that. And something that you said I picked up on when you said that you had a vision of being in the shop. And I love that because I am a visionary and my entire life is based on visions that I've had. And once I get a vision, I just start envisioning more details around that vision. And the more details that I can create, the closer I get to it. So I love that. And can you tell me a little bit about like when you initially got exposed to this, did you know then that eventually you wanted to do something of your own, or at what point Was it the traveling, like you said, that finally you said, I need a home and, I just want to do this myself?
I didn't know right away that I wanted to do it myself, but what happened was that shop that I started at, they liked to keep me kind of separate. I didn't get to talk with the customers, so I would just be told, draw a tractor, put a rose on, but I just knew there was always more to the story. And one time a couple asked to speak to me, and the owner of that company, after they left, his exact words were, didn't they like any of the crap we had in our books? And I thought, you've been in this business too long. You forgot what this is about. So that was my first cue that it was time to go out on my own. And we used to have a hand etcher that would come into the shop, and it's like hand etching is like working with a Dremel tool with a diamond or a tattoo gun. You're drawing on the granite with a tiny diamond tip. And I would watch this gentleman, and I was in love. And I asked the owner if I said, can I learn to hand etch? And he said, nope. And I don't do very well when people tell me no. And so I climbed.
You're in good company here.
Same company.
Sisters.
I climbed in dumpsters of countertop places, literally pulled my car up after hours. I'd climb in the dumpsters, pick out scrap granite, dark granite. I bought my own tools, and I taught myself for 6 months. I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I finally learned.
Now, was there YouTube then?
No. This is well, if there was, I didn't have a computer. I was a single mom, and I about had 2 pennies left over at the end of the month. So, yeah, no,
Gotcha.
I was just myself. And then I asked the owner if I could etch, and he looked at me and he said, well, who did this? And I'm like, this girl right here. So that was it. And then in 2007, I went out on my own, and I started doing this for other companies. And I would, everywhere I drove, I was looking for my building. I knew I needed a home, but I didn't know where it was. I didn't know what it looked like exactly. And I'm not kidding you. One day I was driving over to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and I drove past this building, and the grass was past my boobs. Sorry, just gonna not say that. It was up to here. I lived around in the highway. I pulled in the driveway here. It had been abandoned for years. I looked in the window. It was filled with garbage, and I said, this is it. This is my dream right here, right?
Grass and garbage. This is it. We got it.
It looked bad. And I tracked the owner down. It wasn't for sale, for lease, or for rent. I tracked the owner down, and I called him, and I said, would you sell me your building, or would you let me rent it? And he said, nope, you don't want that building. Thank you. Click. Well, once again, somebody told me no, and I don't do very well. 30 days to the day later, I called him up and I said, can I take you out to lunch? Will you sit down with me? Can I show you my portfolio? And can I tell you why I know with everything I am that this is where I'm supposed to be? So we did. And 2.5 hours later, he ripped a half sheet of a notebook off of the waitress's notebook, and he wrote a handwritten lease on that paper. And that's going on. It's going on 8 years ago. It was 2017. So that was it. And he is my biggest cheerleader. My word, the man leaves the field loader here for me. He does anything and everything and lets me do whatever I want to the building. It's amazing. So it was where I was supposed to be.
I'm just curious, how did you see the vision? Why did you think that building was it through all the mess?
It was on a busy highway, which I needed. It had the space that I wanted one big open room so that I could have all the stones I was working on out in the room. So when families came in, they would see each stone and they could talk about the story that's going on each stone. The location was phenomenal, and it was like 10 minutes from my house. But if any of you have seen the movie Princess and the Frog, which is my youngest daughter's favorite movie, the young lady in that movie from Disney, she had a dream about starting a restaurant. That was her dream. And she found this old dilapidated building, and she worked to save money to buy it, and she turned it into her dream. And so when my youngest daughter first saw this building, she goes, Mom, this is Princess and the Frog.
I love it. See, I thought you were going to say, my thought would have been, I know that there's a deal going on here with the way that it looks in the grass and all of that. And I'm always looking for a deal.
Girl, if you know what I paid for rent in here, I have a deal.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think one of the most powerful parts about what you do, Julia, is just this whole walking with families through their grief journeys.
Yeah, I love
I
that.
think giving the families creative outlet to be able to not only talk to somebody like you who can listen and hear and kind of read between the lines of what they're saying, but then also create something so beautiful and so long lasting for that family to give their loved one just a story, an everlasting moment. I just think that that's so beautiful.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes
I
story
love
is
that telling
fun.
stories in stone phrase. I love it. I actually, when I was training for a race one time, I would run through a cemetery often, and I always look at the headstones. And you're absolutely right. You read it, and you kind of, especially the older ones. It's like you have a sort of a tiny little glimpse into who is this person.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the older ones. You're that story. You're so interested. It's like you're invested in their story just by even the dates and maybe the image, the graphic that's on there. So this is that it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that that was just your vision in your head, that you saw that and saw the need for that and just went with it, and that's where your heart was at, and you did it. So it's commendable. And your tenacity, actually. Don't take no, and like get it. How did you decide, like how did you end up spreading the word? So once you decided to go out on your own, what did you do then? What was your next step of like, here's how I'm going to tell the world that I can tell your story in stone?
So a lot of times people who have monument companies, they'll sell through funeral homes. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be where they came here to this shop rather than me just being a provider or a wholesaler for funeral homes. Nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. Nothing. But the fact is, those funeral homes and those offices, those salespeople have probably never touched granite. I lay it out, I draw it out, I've sandblasted, I've pulled stencil, I set stones all summer long myself. I have a boom truck, a crane truck. So I started by introducing myself to the cemetery caretakers locally. And when I first moved in here, I was still etching for other companies. That was my bread and butter. So I made a promise not to go in debt. I am not even 10 cents in debt with this company. My sign out on the highway was built by my dad. The walls and the doors in here, we've done ourselves. I kept to that. And so I've built a reputation and a relationship with churches, with cemeteries, with the people who are at the ground level rather than just going crazy. Like I also joined our local Chamber of Commerce, which I love, and they're really wonderful for supporting people.
Great idea.
I put things out on Facebook. I tell the stories. I tell them that, when families come in to etch with me, I always ask, is it okay if I share this? I've had 7-year-olds etching on their aunt's headstones. I've had 87-year-olds etching on their son's headstone. So I share that, and I use budget-friendly ways to.
Yeah.
This is my first year I'm thinking about doing something a little bit more outside of my comfort zone. I looked into doing like a billboard or something, but people talk about organic growth, and that's really something I wanted to do because I let go of the wholesale etching part for other companies, and now I can just focus on the retail part here. But finding that place, that balance where I could let go of one was scary. It was really scary because the wholesale etching paid the bills. So now it's just on me. That it's scary but exciting. So this will be a year of different change. And we talked briefly about this being a male industry or man's industry. It largely was. When I first started, I was the first at that monument company. I was the first woman in 85 years to walk in those doors. And they didn't want me there. They did not want me there.
Really?
Nope. So it's been hard.
Well, I could just see there being, I was going to say, I could just see there being an upper hand, especially building the relationships with people that are, mourning and dealing with loss. As women, I could see that interaction being a little more successful and men probably being threatened by that because as we know, we have most of the time more empathy and that type of
Right.
stuff.
Right. And it's important. And I'm not going to lie, there's days I cry with families. I can't help it. I cannot help it. There are days
Yeah.
that just sit so heavy on you, and you have to just put it into the design. You have to put it into this, and you have to let it go and leave it at work. There's really hard
Yeah.
days, but there's really rewarding days. I mean, there's days I've gone home, sat on my kitchen floor, and cried. But there's been days when
Mhm.
I was out on my boom truck. I had a 1,600-pound stone in the air, and my crane broke, and I was here by myself. And I had a big stone just hanging on there, and I had to try to get it onto my truck by myself. 2 hours. I sobbed like a baby. I cried like a baby. And when I got it on there, I was laying on that thing sweating and crying and cheering. And so
But you got it on there.
I did. But there are hard days. And on those hard days, I literally have a crown right up here on the wall, and I stick it on, and I walk around, and I remind myself.
I love it.
Yep. Sometimes
I
I have
love
to
it.
bring out my setting truck, and I'll be out there with bugs flying around, and I just stick my crown on, and I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this.
We need a picture of that.
I know.
Oh, I'll send
Julia,
you
I
one.
think one of the reasons that people connect with you so much is that your whole story, and I'm just learning more as we go, but it's just so much full of grit. It's full of heart and a little bit of magic, a little bit of wonder. But I remember, so you told me the story, and this is the segue to the story I want you to tell everyone. You've got a super interesting story about this tour bus and
Mm-hmm.
this giveaway that kind of being part of a signature move thing, a piece of you.
Right.
Can you tell our listeners and my friends about this tour bus story?
Absolutely. So and it's not just a tour bus; it's gone bigger than that. I had a mystery tour bus out of Fargo, North Dakota, contact me last year and said, "Would you allow 50 women to come to your shop because they saw me on Twin Cities Live, and we'd love to come bring our pink mystery bus tour to your shop. And these women don't know where they're going. They pay for a weekend of just going somewhere." I'm like, "Sure, okay." I said, "You sure you want to come to a headstone shop?" And he said, "Absolutely." "All right, come on down." So I told them the story, and it really starts off with when my girls were young, or my last one actually was younger. We were at the doctor's office, and she had a wonderful physician named Thomas Schrupp. But he was a very short in stature man, and my kids called him Dr. Shrimp. But anyway, Dr. Schrupp told us that when girls start to become teenagers, they kind of start crawling within their bodies. They make themselves small, they make themselves quiet, and they aren't comfortable having attention. So they kind of fold their arms in, they sit like this, they just make themselves small. And when you do that, you're doing something to your brain. You're saying, I need to be quiet, I need to be calm, I need to be not seen so much, not heard. But when you're faced with something that needs courage, when your body is doing this, your brain is also doing this. And he told us about Amy Cuddy's TED Talk about the Wonder Woman pose. And the Wonder Woman pose literally is a power pose in which you stand with your chest out, your hands on your hips, you're embodying Wonder Woman. And doing that for 2 minutes and just believing in yourself for 2 minutes will change the chemistry of your brain. So my middle daughter is in the Navy, and she was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and she was going up for her first set of boards for Sailor of the Quarter, and she was really nervous. Even though she's a very bold, very determined young lady, she was scared. And I said, "Honey," I said, "I want you to do your Wonder Woman pose." And she goes, "Mom." I said, "No, seriously." So I overnighted her, as quick as I could, a pair of Wonder Woman underwear. And I said, "I want you to put these on under your uniform, and you're going to go in the bathroom before you go in front of those 7 chiefs or 8 chiefs, and you're going to do the Wonder Woman pose, and you're going to put all that superpower into your underwear, and nobody's going to know that you're wearing them, and you're going to go in front of those boards, and you're going to kick some royal ass." She's like, "Mom," whatever. The next morning, I get this photo of her in her mirror wearing her uniform shirt and her Wonder Woman underwear. And she goes in and she made it. She became Soldier of the Quarter or whatever it was, Sailor of the Quarter. And every time she went up for her boards after that, she wore her Wonder Woman underwear. So I gave them out to my other daughters, to Kira, to Devin, and they all have Wonder Woman underwear. Well, then it started spreading to their friends. So all of their friends have Wonder Woman underwear. Then it started going out to other Monument friends in my industry. So I started sending out Wonder Woman underwear to all these different people, and they'd send me pictures in their Wonder Woman underwear. So I told this tour bus company about Wonder Woman underwear, and we had 4 pair here that I said, after I told the story, I said, whoever would like a pair, raise your hand. Well, like half of the audience raised their hand. And one of the women, she got them. I didn't hear any more. But this tour bus came back 4 times this last year. So that was the first time. And that one of the women who received them on the first tour bus, she came back on another tour. She didn't know they were coming here. And she said, do you remember me? And I said, no, I'm sorry. She said, I raised my hand and I got one of the Wonder Woman underwear. And I said, oh, that's so cool. She said, what you didn't know was I was going through the worst time of my life. I was going through a really hellacious divorce. And when I went in front of the court for the last time, I wore my Wonder Woman underwear. And she said, now they're in a frame on my dresser in my bedroom. So we have now given out over 300 pairs of Wonder Woman underwear. My dentist, I told Cora what I told her, my dentist is a female dentist, and her office heard about it, and she had just ordered 12 pair for all of her office ladies, and I had to go and tell the story on their little 6-month meeting. So it's goofy, it's crazy, but I tell all my people, I said, this is your superpower. Wear it. Nobody needs to know.
I love it.
But that's my
Now,
story.
are you branding these Wonder Woman underwear with your brand on them?
No. I want to contact like Marvel or whoever has it, and I want to be like,
just like, hello.
Guess what? Yeah, I'm the least likely spokeswoman for
They're
this.
seeing this random uptick in Minnesota sales and Women underwear, and they're like, "What is this coming from?
What is going on?
Monument Lady."
There's a need.
I don't know. Something's there.
There is a need. There is a need for us to be able to. You know, you can't walk into with a crown on, right? You can't go in front of your 7 chiefs for a board with a crown on, but you can go in with Wonder Woman underwear on, and nobody needs to know.
No one needs to know. Exactly. I don't know. I might wear mine over my pants.
Right? I mean, that's
get it. Do it.
That might get a different response.
Yep.
No, I think that, Julia, I think that the underwear is a thing, and I love that, but I also love this whole idea that you looked your daughters in the face and you just celebrated that it is okay to be female, it's okay to be powerful, it's okay to stand with confidence. And I know your daughters, and that is who they are. They have grown up to be that. And I just feel like you can be really proud of the girls that you've raised because of life lessons like that you've instilled in them, for sure.
Yeah. I know that we're coming up on time, but I've been dying to ask this question. I want to know, what are some of the coolest pieces that you have done over the years?
Yeah, I was gonna say the funniest and weirdest, but okay, coolest.
Yeah, like all the ones.
Favorite. I have a lot of favorites, but one of my absolute favorites was a 93-year-old man. He lost his wife, and he came in here with his 2 daughters, who were near 70, and they were, I'm going to say, uppity, for lack of a better word, and he was not. He was tiny and frail and in his walker. And he was sitting at the end of the table on his walker, and he says he wanted his cabin scene because he'd built his cabin with his own 2 hands. He wanted the lake scene, and he wanted his pontoon on there. And he said, I want you to put the name of my boat on my stone. And the girls slammed their hands down. They turned around and said, don't you dare, Dad. Don't you ever do. And he's chuckling in his little seat. And he goes, you want to know the name of my boat? I said, yeah. He said, Wet Dream.
I love it. What was he serious?
Did he win? Is it on his?
Yeah, is it there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's good.
Oh my god.
Another time
Yeah,
I
that's one for the website.
it was awesome. I'm sure his daughters were furious with me, but that's okay. He paid for it. It's his stone. He wanted that there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one I did recently, on her side, it says born to shop, and on his side, it says born to pay for it.
Yeah. That's great.
I love it. Well, that's
Yep.
what I was thinking, that if I did something like that, I would want something to do with purses and shoes.
Yeah.
So
It would
that
just
was
be your Louis Vuitton and Coco Chanel just
Oh,
logos
so,
all over the place.
yeah.
Yep.
I think that would be cool.
But there's tough ones too. I mean, I had a lady who lost her son, and he was in his 40s, and he probably weighed about 500 pounds. And before I do a portrait, I always do a pencil drawing for them to approve. And she came and she said, "Can you make him thinner?" Okay. So I tried to draw him thinner. She came back in, "Can you draw him thinner?" Okay, I can try to. I literally drew 8 portraits, and he went from about 500 pounds down to 175 pounds. And then she said, "That doesn't look anything like him." Nope, you're right. He was who he was. He was fat. Love him for who he was. I'm going to tell you one I will tell everybody: be in the pictures. I can't tell you the number of time I have people come in here. They got like one picture of dad, right? One picture of mom, because mom never liked her picture taken. Be in the pictures. Let yourself. Oh my word. People see you with your double chin. They see you with your no makeup. They see you how you are every day. Be in the pictures.
Yep. And that is for someone in our audience, because these 3 ladies right here are in all the pictures.
Right. Yeah. Oh, this has been great. Guys, takeaways, last questions. Julie, do you have any last minute things you'd like to say? Oh, if our listeners want to cherish their loved ones by contacting you, how can they get a hold of you, Julia?
And my website is Two Rivers Monuments. I'm in Elk River, Minnesota. I am the only shop that allows families to come in here. My Monument Builders of North America even flew me out to San Diego to go speak to all the old dudes about why I see this differently, why I think families being a part of it can be a part of their healing. I want, even if it just means they just were watching me while I'm working on the stone, I open my doors and let people be a part of that to whatever degree they feel comfortable with. So they can catch me on the website. I'm on Instagram as the Headstone Lady. I think that would be the easiest way.
I think you're soon going to be the Wonder Woman underwear lady too. Then you might get some other kind of followers, but they'll understand eventually what you mean. One of the things that I'm taking away, and I'm glad that you said that, because this was in my notes here, is you're a healer, that God gave you the gift to heal. And so I thank you for that.
Wow. When I do say, when families leave here, if I've gotten a hug, I've done my job. So that's really my measure.
I would just say thanks for what you're doing. I mean, being someone who's lost some people recently, hearing what you're doing is just makes my heart whole.
I think I'm where I'm supposed to be, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely,
really
absolutely
every single day.
Yeah, Julia, I think from the moment I met you, I told you this earlier, that I met Julia. She comes in to dinner. So the little cat in the bag is that Julia is the mother to my brother's fiance. So that is how this is how I know Julia. But when she came into the room when we went out for family dinner for the first time, she comes in and she's got red glasses on and her hair is up just like you are today. You had a colorful sweater on, and I just looked at her and I'm like, this is a lady I need in my circle. You didn't even open your mouth, and I'm like, I need to know this lady. And everything you said, the stories, the empowerment, just really is just so motivating and so inspirational. So yeah, I think Jessica, you said it right, that you've got the perfect job for what you're doing, and I just encourage you just to keep moving in that space. And I'm just excited to see. Well,
Coralyn, I know we got to wrap up. I keep saying that, but then I keep talking. I just want to know one thing. So what's next? Like, what's next level? Like, what I want to make sure that I am praying for you, that I am standing beside you in your vision. Tell me what your next vision is.
My next vision is to grow this big enough so that my oldest daughter can step in here because she actually likes this industry. She's not an artist, but she's got such a gift and such an eye so that we could share part of this. That would be amazing to me. And her and Leaf would like to work together and have their own business. And I would love, because I know that it would be handing it over to somebody who cares about it as much as I do. You can teach people a skill. You can teach them how to do a job. You can't teach them how to care. And so knowing
Amen.
that is something that is there, that is what I would like to take this next year, make a plan and start walking towards that for growth so that I can bring her in here.
Great.
Love it. Thank you
Great.
for
Love
sharing
it.
that with me. And I will put that on.
I'll
So
take it.
Julia, thank you again. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story with us today. You are literally living in a living example of what it means to lead like a girl in so many ways, full of strength, creativity, compassion, Wonder Woman, everything. I just love it. For everyone listening, again, if you want to learn more about Julia and see her stunning work, you can visit tworiversmonuments.com. Check her out on Instagram. Look at all of her beautiful art and monuments. We can link it in our show notes also. But ladies, until next time, this has been a fantastic conversation. And I just encourage all of our listeners to remember to, if this episode resonates with you, please help us grow our listenership by sharing this within your circles. You can check out our website at leadlikeagirllab.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of our social medias. So please help us grow. And until then, I just encourage everyone, just keep leading, keep dreaming, living boldly, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.